first speaker is Joel Swanson. He's a friend of ours at TPAC. He's our EOS facilitator for our company, has his master's in theology from my alma mater, Bethel University here in town. I did take 2 classes. I passed them both, but I didn't obviously go much farther in my master's in theology, but I do have 2 classes under my belt. He's a great listener, Joel is, but he's even a better speaker, which you don't often find that. In people. And so in order to make self-funding easier, you need to make your company more accountable and have the right people in the right seats. So that's key to work on your own company. So I want to introduce Joel Swanson and welcome him.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Now, scientifically, I'd like you to know that caffeine kicks in better when everybody stands up. So everybody up for just a moment. And Mike, can I get you up here for just a second?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn to the person to your left, to your right, and I want you to just give them a good, I'm so glad you're here. Okay,
all right.
So glad you're here. There we go. Thank you.
So glad you're here.
Thank you. Perfect. That's all we needed for the caffeine to kick in, so we're good to go there. So Mike kicked us off here. One thing that hasn't happened yet is, can we just take a second and acknowledge TPAC for the effort and the desire of what they're trying to do to put on this conference and bring all you guys together. So thank you very nice to you guys. So like Mike said, my name is Joel Swanson, and my role with TPAC is I am someone who works with them on implementing this system called EOS, and so we're going to speak about that today. And the big idea here, this is what TPAC is trying to do. Changing the way healthcare is financed, disclosed, and delivered. No problem, right? We got this. Give us a week, we'll have this all wrapped up. And the first time TPAC told me this is what they were trying to do, I kind of, under my breath, because this is not easy. And affecting change in the world the way TPAC is trying to do doesn't happen when we do things just a little bit different, right? There needs to be dramatic change, and dramatic change doesn't happen when we just make a couple tweaks here and there. And so you've all seen this graphic. What's the lesson behind this that they're always telling you on the airplane? Yes, put your oxygen mask on first. So if you are on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop down and you worry about everybody else before you worry about yourself, then that's going to be a problem. And your tendency as a parent is to say, oh my gosh, I have to help my kid. But what they're telling you is put your own mask on, and then you will be better equipped to help the kid, to help the person next to you, whatever that is. Now, from a business standpoint, the same truth really applies. And a big reason that TPAC has chosen to bring all of you here as partners is because TPAC has said, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the way that healthcare is financed, disclosed, delivered. We can't do that by ourselves, just TPAC. And so we need to bring other partners with us around us to help and make sure that we do that. Now, you, as a leader in your company, cannot truly engage in changing the way that healthcare is financed, disclosed, and delivered if you are dead, right? Or if you are so wrapped up in the day-to-day of your business that you're just worried about making payroll, you're trying to get to Friday without being under your desk crying. And so changing the way healthcare is financed, disclosed, and delivered requires you to put your oxygen mask on first. And that's really what we're talking about here. I am not somebody who has anything intelligent to say about how we actually change the way healthcare is financed, disclosed, and delivered. I don't understand the world that you guys are in. You guys have brilliance and wisdom that I never will have. The role that I have in this is really helping you understand from a company standpoint, how do we put our oxygen masks on first so that we can truly engage in this mission that TPAC is trying to do. So that's the idea behind EOS. And so EOS, just a quick overview for you, EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So people think operating system, and they tend to think technology. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is what kind of tools and processes can you implement in your business to make sure that your business really does what you need your business to do. If you are normal in your business, many leaders in business feel like their company is kind of going down the road without them, and you're just running, trying to keep up and trying to make sure that you don't lose track of everything. Well, what does it look like for you to truly be in control of your business? And so in implementing EOS, there's really three big objectives that we call vision, traction, and healthy. So the first, vision, is to make sure that all of your leaders are 100% on the same page with the answers to the 8 questions from the vision that we will go over in a moment. So making sure that everybody's on the same page with the vision. The traction component is all about discipline and accountability. So how do we teach leaders to be people who can master execution so that you can actually achieve the vision? And then the healthy component is about saying, how do we build healthy teams in the process? Because what we want is for all the progress that you make as a company to be sustainable, and it's not sustainable if you don't have healthy teams. So that's the big idea behind EOS and vision, traction, and healthy. So there are, I think the latest numbers are like 23,000 companies that we've taken through EOS. There are 650 people like me across the world. We're in 22 different countries or whatever. And I say that not to kind of elevate EOS or myself, but to reassure you that there's no theory in what we're going to talk about today. As you look through you've all got a booklet in front of you that's got the tools in this. Anything I say, there's nothing I say that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I've never thought of that before, right? The genius of what EOS does, and by the way, I didn't create it. I wish I could say that I did. I'm certified in this system. The genius of what EOS does is synthesize really the greatest business thinking down into a system that normal people can execute. So if you work for Cargill, if you work for United Health Group, they've got an entire floor of people that are dedicated to strategic planning, right? Okay, well, a small company can't do that. We have to fly the plane as we're building it after we already jumped off the cliff. We can't just be like, all right, everybody stop. I'm going to go get an MBA and then come back and we'll try this again. So all of this has to go as we are proceeding. So that many companies, that much success over the many years, there's a couple things that have really become apparent to us, and that's that, by way of example, everything in the world is either a glass of water or not a glass of water. Okay? So when you were in 4th grade, you learned about opposites, and were taught that the opposite of up is down, and the opposite of hot is cold, and that's fine for 4th graders. From a logic standpoint, if you took Philosophy 101 in college, the opposite of up is not down, the opposite of up is not up, okay? And so the same thing with your business, the same way that everything in the world is either a glass of water or not a glass of water, every single business leader is either getting what they want from their company and therefore able to truly engage in the mission that they're trying to do and overflow into the lives of people around them, or they're not. And it's really Boolean there. It's an either-or kind of a thing. And so with companies that are getting what they want from their business, there's certain ways that they operate, and with companies that are not, there's certain frustrations that they tend to have. And so there's 5 main frustrations that we see with companies, and so I want to talk you through these quickly. Thing number 1 is companies that are not truly getting what they want, leaders that are not getting what they want from their business, not truly able to engage in their vision and their mission, not able to overflow into the lives of people around them, one big frustration is control or lack of control. You want to be in control of your business, that's a good thing, but you feel like your business is controlling you. You're not truly in the driver's seat of it. Thing number 2 is profit. Now, the objective of what TPAC is trying to do is not to make $1 billion. I think they're the only client I've ever worked with that has actually told me that they made too much money last year. And because the way this said is, well, if we make this much profit, that's great, but 2 things. 1, that's not sustainable in the marketplace. And 2, if we do that, we're not doing anything different than the massive healthcare companies are doing. But we need to at least make some profit, right? So lots of companies are trying to make any profit or trying to make more. That's a good thing. Thing number 3 is people. Nobody gets it the way that you do. Nobody truly embraces it the way that you do. You pour your heart and your soul into your people. They just don't get it. So people is a big frustration. 4th is hitting the ceiling. And this is a natural phenomenon in business where everything that's working all of a sudden stops working. We bump up against a ceiling, we can't break through it. I don't know what happened, but we got to a certain size, and we hit a plateau that we're unable to break through. And then last is nothing's working. I've read all the books, I've done all the stuff, and I just can't make everything happen in the business. And so this is very common in business leaders. And so implementing EOS in your company is not the only way, but one way to truly break through these frustrations. And so I'm going to go through kind of the 6 key components out of EOS at a high level, and then we'll get into more detail on this. The discovery that led to this 6 key components of EOS, which you guys all have a workbook in front of you, you can all see it, is that as business leaders, you tend to wrestle with 136 things kind of all at the same time. There's a lot of fires happening, but to the degree to which you can strengthen your organization in these 6 key components of EOS, then most of those fires are just kind of fading into the woodwork because we're addressing root causes, not symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the center of everything is your business, and the first of these components is vision. And vision is the idea that we need to get everybody in the organization 100% on the same page. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? The second is people. I don't care what your vision is, you're never going to make it a reality without good people. And so we have to figure out, what does that look like for your company? And we're not talking about like inherently good people, inherently bad people. What we're talking about is, what does it mean to be a right fit for your company? How do we get people in your company that truly fit you and your culture? Third is data. So most companies run based on somebody's intuition. Whoever has the largest office, they make the final call, et cetera, et cetera. We run companies based on data. And so when you've got the vision crystal clear, you've got awesome people doing awesome stuff, you're running the company based on information, anything that's a barrier, an impurity, a speed bump, all those things really stand out. We call those issues. And we've got an entire discipline within EOS of how do we solve issues in a company. Next is process. Process, please do, I always am concerned here because I say process and people think like AS9100 and SOP manuals and Sarbanes-Oxley and all these massive things. That's not what we're talking about here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail when we go through them all. But we're just talking about systemizing the most important things at your business and making sure that they happen the same way every time. And then last is traction. And traction is just the idea that we've got a vision, that's great, none of that is going to happen if we can't execute. And so how do we teach people how to execute so that we can actually achieve our vision? And the objective of this whole thing is to become at least 100%, yes, we can't get more than 100%, is to become 100% strong in all 6 of these components. We have an assessment that we use, in measuring the progress. By the way, there's a lot of free tools on the EOS website, and so this assessment is there, and it's free, and you can just take it. It's called the Organizational Checkup. So we measure the progress on this journey, and we say vision without traction is hallucination. So if we are trying to become 100% strong, we're not going to get there without taking our vision and truly being able to execute it. So, trying to become 100% strong, nobody ever gets to 100% strong in all of these. The highest I've seen with any of my clients in almost 10 years that I've been doing this is 91%. So don't freak out about getting to 100. Truly, what we're trying to do is to become at least 80% strong in all of these components. Most companies are operating somewhere around 20%, and these are the companies, and this is most companies. This doesn't mean you're a bad person if your company's operating at 20%. It just means you're normal, is you're chasing after your business, hoping to be in control of it. Truly, your business is in control of you. So we want to become at least 80% strong in all of these, so I'm going to go through this at another level here and go into a little bit more detail of when we say 100% strong, what does that really look like in your company and how do you get there? So the first is vision, and the first discipline under vision is what we call answering the 8 questions. And the 8 questions are the shaded boxes on what we call the Vision Traction Organizer, the VTO, and that's this thing that you've got in front of you. So there's 2 pages to it, and your entire business plan, your entire vision fits on these 2 pages. We've got core values, core focus, 10-year target, marketing strategy, 3-year picture. And on the second page, we've got 1-year plan, rocks, and issues. And so at a high level, we've got to make sure that you as a leadership team are unified in the answers to these 8 questions. So first is core values. So everybody knows the term core values. Core values have become kind of trite and overused, but in an EOS company, we don't do core values because we're looking for pretty wall art, okay? We do core values because this is how we define who the right people are for your organization. So not pretty wall art. How do we make sure that we get the right people for your organization? And the right people are simply people that uphold your core values. Now, your organization and every organization absolutely has core values, regardless of whether you've ever tried to be intentional about them. And so the EOS process helps you discover what those core values actually are so we can be intentional about surrounding ourselves with people that truly uphold those core values. So we need to discover what they are, we need to define them, and then we need to live and breathe these core values. This is the handful of rules that really govern what happens in your company. Jacob told me that I could use TPAC stuff as examples. And so these are TPAC's core values. This is what they've come up with. And it's these 5 things. Everybody who is a part of TPAC's company upholds these 5 core values. We do everything with honesty and integrity. We own it. We demonstrate humility and respect in all relationships. We care about the why, and we believe that work is about more than work. What TPAC has said is we need people at our company that uphold these things. And if you were to interview at TPAC, there's a lot of questions that TPAC is going to ask that's trying to get at, does this person truly uphold these core values? Because we need to have people at our companies that truly uphold the things that we are passionate about and the things that are most important to us. So that's TPAC's core values. The next is core focus. And core focus has been called lots of things: mission statement, vision statement, hedgehog concept, et cetera, et cetera. We call it core focus because it comes from your core. You have to stay laser focused on it. And this is really a combination of 2 things. It's your why and your what. So what is the passion behind what you do? And then what is the niche that you are going to use to take that passion to the world? And so we've got to be crystal clear on the core focus. Next is 10-year target. 10-year target is really just a dot on the horizon. So if you're driving down the road in North Dakota and you look, the road is straight, you look at your hands, 10 and 2, just like you were taught in driver's ed when you were 15, your hands don't stay still. Your hands do this. on the steering wheel, right? And you haven't had to think about that consciously since you were 16, but because you see that dot on the horizon, your whole being is lining up to make decisions every single moment that guide you toward that dot on the horizon. And so the same thing happens in a business. When we are crystal clear on what's the single big goal out there, then your whole company lines up to make decisions that guide us toward that. That's the 10-year target. What do you want from your business? 5 to 30 years out is the rule of thumb. I have yet to have a client set more than a 10-year target that's more than 10 years out. More and more, I have people saying, I can't even think 10 years out. And so I've got people doing it 5 years out or 7 years out because the world, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the world moves really fast. And it seems like every year it moves faster than it did last year. So it doesn't have to be 10 years. That's what we call the tool. But what is kind of the timeline out there that you want to move toward? And establishing that number one goal. Next is marketing strategy. So this is not marketing tactics. So there's nothing in here about pay-per-click and lead magnets and all that kind of stuff. This is just about identifying who is the person that the companies, the clients that we want to work with, and what is the message that's most attractive to them. And many, many companies have never truly been intentional about that. Now, I want you to hear me clearly here that this does not mean that we exclude everybody that does not fit exactly this target market. What it means is that our sales and marketing efforts all have to point at this single thing. So we need to be clear about our target market. That's the demographic, psychographic, and geographic of our ideal client. So demographic is kind of like, what's the vital stats? What are the things that we could look up about this company or this person? Psychographic is, how do they think? What's important to them? What do they value? And then geographic is, where are they? And we want to point all of our sales and marketing efforts at that target market. Now, once again, that does not mean that we exclude everybody else. If somebody shows up on our doorstep waving money at us, we may take them. I work with a lot of nonprofits. Probably a quarter to a third of my clients have been nonprofits over the decade that I've done this. I love working with nonprofits. Nonprofits are not part of my target market. I'm not hanging out at nonprofit conferences, but when they find their way to me, I love working with them. I'm excited about that. But I'm pointing all of my sales and marketing efforts at companies like TPAC that fit the demographic, psychographic, geographic of who I want to work with. So we need to be crystal clear about that for your company. The three uniques then are, what is the message that's most attractive to these people? So we identify what the target market is. Why would they bother to work with your company? You got lots of competitors, right? And so they could work with anybody. Why would they bother to work with you? And one of these uniques doesn't necessarily truly differentiate you. And you may even have some competitors that do two of these things. But if this prospect wants all three of these things, the only place they can get it is with you. And so we're segmenting the market that clearly and that narrowly that you are the only choice if people want these three things. Proven process and guarantee are also tools in this. The proven process is saying, well, how do we reassure people that they're in the good hands of our process, not just in the good hands of Bob? So Bob is brilliant. I love Bob. But I'm not just in the good hands of Bob, I'm in the good hands of this process that the company does. And then the guarantee is, what's kind of the revolutionary promise you can make in the marketplace to reduce people's anxiety, make it more likely for them to be willing to engage. And so there's lots of marketing tactics stuff that has to happen. That's all good. But the foundation of all of the tactics is this right here. Who is our ideal client? What's the message that's the most attractive to them? How do we reassure them that they're in the good hands of our process? And what promise can we make in the marketplace? That's the marketing strategy. So next is 3-year picture. So you'll notice it says picture. We call this picture for a reason. So there are people in your company who can look at detailed 3 to 5-year strategic like spreadsheets and things like that and can tell you a story of what is the company going to look like, how does it feel, what's the story that has made all of these metrics come forward. Brian is one of those people. Guy's got a CPA, guy's got an MBA, he can look at all the numbers and tell you the story. Okay, the vast majority of the people in your company cannot do that, myself included. So we need to paint a picture for people that helps them understand what's this going to look like and what's it going to feel like. So yeah, we've got to have some objective things. So revenue, profit, measurables, that kind of thing. But then the 3-year picture is really about saying to people, if I stick around here, what can I expect? What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What's in it for me? And because to the extent that you can get everybody seeing the same thing in their mind's eye, you're way more likely to get there. And also, when we've got a very clear picture of what's it going to look like in 3 years, that sets us up to do much better 1-year planning. So the next thing is the 1-year plan. And so we've got to identify what are the critical things that we've got to get done this year in order to stay on track for that 3-year picture. So we've got a 10-year target. What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like in 3 years? What do we have to do this year to stay on track? We've got revenue, profit, et cetera, and then a set of goals. Now, most companies try to get 26 things done every single year and get almost nothing done. Here, you'll notice there's 7 items on this list, and I'm always trying to push people toward as few as possible. 3 to 7, hopefully closer to 3, because in everything we do in EOS, we adopt a less is more mentality. In the almost 10 years I've been doing this, I have yet to have a company set 7 goals for the year and hit all 7. Now, TPAC did, and I told them, if they're the first that hits all 7, then I'm buying the entire company pizza. So I hope that they do, but it's really difficult to set 7 big goals and hit all 7. And I would rather have you set 3 or 4 and actually get them than say, oh, we're going to do these 11 things that we're going to do this year, and then we waste effort on a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't get done. Now, a year is too long for humans to focus. So if you ever had a conversation with your significant other, and then 5 months later, you and he or she have a completely different recollection of what we talked about or what was decided? Yeah, married people go like this? Yeah, exactly. So a year is too long for people to focus. And so we break it down into 90-day rocks, and so that's the next part. Okay, if these are the 4 things that we said are absolutely critical for us to get done this year, what do we have to do this quarter in order to stay on track? And so trying to plan in detail 3 and 4 quarters out, there's not a lot of value in that. So we plan a quarter at a time. 10-year target, 3-year picture, 1-year plan. Okay, what do we have to do this quarter in order to stay on track? And so we set the 1-year plan, we set the rocks, we execute for 90 days, we come up for air 90 days later, we look around, we say, how did we do? And then we say, okay, great. Now, what do we have to do in the next 90 days in order to stay on track? And that 90-day cadence just becomes the heartbeat that your company operates on. Every 90 days, we get back together, we reassess, and we make sure that we are aligned going forward. What's very normal is to get everybody aligned, everybody fired up, everybody's bought in, everybody understands, and then as soon as you walk out the door, people just start to drift. And it's not because they're bad people, it's because that's human nature. And so my clients walk out of their sessions, they're fired up, they got everything aligned, they're confident, and then 90 days later when they come back, it's pretty normal to be like, okay, we're confused about some things, we're a little sort of discombobulated, and that's why we do this every 90 days. So every 90 days, we've got alignment built into the system. And then last is issues. So your company has issues, my company has issues, we all have issues. The faster we can just admit that, the faster we can solve them. And so the discipline here is really just about being okay with having issues and putting them on a list. Because the faster we can admit that we have issues, the faster we can solve them. But then also, the better we can just go back to the thing that you were doing. If on Thursday something happens, and you're like, oh crap, what do we do here? And you've got to get everybody together to address this thing, that derails you from everything else that you were doing. But if we can say, whoops, holy crap, we got something we got to address here, we're going to put it on the issues list because we know on Tuesday we're going to solve issues, then you can just put it out of your head and go back to the thing that you were doing. And so all of these things together make up this VTO, And these are the 8 questions, and like I said, the degree to which you can get your leaders 100% aligned on the answers to these 8 questions, that's the degree that you've really got a vision that's truly shared. And so we've got to make sure that we align around the 8 questions, and then second, we need to make sure that they are shared by all. Now notice, I didn't say agreed upon by all. You got 60 people in your company. No, 60 people aren't going to agree on anything, and that's okay. The diversity in opinion is important, but what's critical here is that every single person in your company has committed that whatever they do is going to align and push forward your version of the vision, not their own ideas. These are the 8 questions. This is the VTO. This is what we're doing. Everything we do is going to drive this. That's the idea behind shared by all. So when your company is 100% strong in the vision component, now remember, nobody ever gets to 100% strong, but that's what we're always striving for. We're going to have, you got 60 people in your company, all 60 are aligned around the answers to the 8 questions, and all 60 have committed that their actions are going to perpetuate your version of the vision. That's 100% strong there. Next is people. We've got 2 disciplines here. First is right people, and second is right seats. Now, this is a Jim Collins concept. You guys have all heard this before. We got to get the right people on the bus. We got to get the wrong people off the bus. We got to get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And so how do we do that in EOS? People component, right people. The tool we use for this is called the People Analyzer, and you guys all have that in your book. And the idea here is that we need to make coaching conversations specific. And so just saying, well, something's kind of off about Susan, like what's going on here, isn't helpful. What we need to be able to do is compare all of our people to the core values that we've established. And so the core values go up top. These are the core values of my organization, EOS Worldwide. So humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what you say. Names go down the side. We've got Maria, we've got John Smith, we've got Rashawn Sorley. And then for each one of these people, we're evaluating them based on the core values. And everybody gets a plus, minus, or a minus. So nobody's perfect, but plus means, yeah, most of the time, this person upholds that core value. Minus means, they might have done something, help first once, but when I think about this person, I don't think about this core value. And then plus minus is somewhere in between. So Maria, she's a plus and humbly confident. John Smith, he's a minus. He doesn't uphold the humbly confident thing. Rashawn Sorley is somewhere in between. And so for each of these people, we evaluate the core values individually. And now, we can do that all day long, and none of that matters unless we establish, what is the minimum acceptable threshold? Because nobody, even in your leadership team, when we did this with TPAC, we didn't have all of the leaders all pluses on all of the core values, and that's fine. But the bar is really, what's that minimum acceptable threshold? So we've got to have at least 3 pluses, no more than 2 plus minuses, and no minuses. Now, you may not have exactly 5 core values. TPAC happens to, EOS Worldwide does, but really it's about half or more than half being pluses, and no more than half being plus minuses and having no minuses. Any minus is a deal killer here. So we've got to be clear about how do we line up our people here. Now, it's great if we've got people that uphold our core values. That's critical. But they also have to be really good at their jobs, right? And so that's the second part. That's right seats. So right people is about core values. Right seats is about making sure that they are good at their job and they know what they're accountable for. So we need to make sure in everything we do with EOS, it's always structure first, people second. So we don't just hire people and say, well, this person sounds cool and they're talented, let's bring them in and then see what happens. No, we always establish what structure do we need, then we go to work putting people in that structure. So the tool we use for this is called the accountability chart, and that's in your books as well. The idea here, really the most critical thing here is that I'm just going to use this table as an example. If you 5 are all leaders in your business, I only need one of you to lose sleep over something. Now, that doesn't mean we can't all care. But if you're accountable for finance, and there's a finance problem, I want you to lose sleep over that. I want you to obsess over that. The rest of you, you've got other stuff. That doesn't mean you can't care. I mean, I hope everybody cares if we've got a finance problem. I hope everybody cares if we've got a sales problem. I hope everybody cares if we've got a customer service problem. But I only need one of you to truly be accountable for it. So you obsess over the things that you are accountable for. You guys got your own stuff. That doesn't mean we can't all care, but it means we all need to be really clear about what are these things that we're going to obsess over. And so for every company, there's only a handful of major functions at the leadership team level. This is not an answer key, by the way. This is just its simplest. At its simplest, we've got to sell something, that's marketing and sales. We've got to deliver something, that's operations. We need to make sure more money is coming in than going out, that's finance. So this gets customized for every organization. You can customize it for yours, but that's kind of the simplest. There's always a function called the integrator. The integrator is the person who really steers the ship on a daily basis. So they're the person who's kind of beating the drum, who's moving things forward, who's having tough conversations, who is watching the P&L, who's managing the projects, who's really steering that ship. They're the glue that kind of holds everything together. The other seat that we have in almost every EOS company is called the visionary. And a visionary and integrator are very different people. So whereas an integrator is heads down in the business, watching the P&L, moving everything forward, a visionary, if there is one, is typically a much bigger picture thinker. So they're good on, they typically operate more on emotion than logic. They're great with R&D. They know where the industry's going. They've got a pulse on everything. They can solve problems in ways that the rest of us don't see. And when a visionary and an integrator exist in a business, very often they're trying to co-run the business and they're creating chaos. And so that doesn't mean that the visionary can't care about the integrator's accountabilities or the integrator can't care about the visionary's accountabilities. But once again, we only need one person to obsess over something. And so we need to be clear about what those accountabilities are. So what were you really put on the planet to do? That's the accountabilities that we're looking for. So we always do structure first, people second. So what are these seats? We've always got the function, which is what's the seat called, and then just a handful of roles that this seat needs to obsess over. Now, if you need a 4-page job description to satisfy your HR people, great. Like there's compliance, there's HR laws, I get it. From an EOS standpoint, I really don't care about your 4-page job description. What I care about is what is the seat and what are the handful of things that you are accountable for that you need to obsess over, that if somebody's going to lose sleep over this in the company, that's your job to lose sleep. So we always build this out first. Now notice the name is the very last thing that we do. It's the function, the roles, and the name. So by way of example, a marketing and sales seat, we need to lead and manage and hold people accountable. We need to be accountable for marketing, hitting the sales numbers, selling, and account management. So there's lots more that goes into that, but what are the things that you lose sleep over? Just those. So how do we know if somebody is good at their job? Now there's lots of in-depth assessments you can do, but at its core in EOS, we're trying to keep things as simple as possible, and we use an acronym called GWC. So G stands for gets it, W stands for wants it, and C stands for capacity to do it. So if somebody gets it, that means that they have the natural intuition. So if you're a salesperson, you had to learn Sandler or action styling. You had to but when you were 4 years old, that gray matter in your brain that made it intuitive for you to sell, that was already there. So get it is like, what were you born with, these raw talents and abilities? Wants it means, no, this person authentically wants this job. I don't have to overpay them. I don't have to over-caffeinate them. I don't have to hold their hand. They want this job. And capacity means, can they actually pull this thing off? Do they have the training, the resources? So where gets it is you were born with. Capacity is everything that you've accumulated knowledge-wise since you were born. So if somebody gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it, then by definition, in an EOS company, they are in the right seat. So we look at this technology seat, and again, just an example, not like an answer key. We need somebody to obsess over these 5 things: data security, system availability, aligning IT and business needs, maintaining and executing an IT roadmap, and resolving employee tech issues. Okay, well, we need somebody who gets that, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. So then what? Okay, well, now we go back to the people analyzer, and gets it, wants it, capacity go in the people analyzer, and where with the core values there's a plus, plus, minus, minus, there is no plus minus in GWC. It's just a yes or a no. So does Maria get it? Does she want it? Does she have the capacity to do it? John Smith, he gets it, he wants it, he can't pull it off. And Rashawn Shorley, he wants it, and he's got all the training, but like it doesn't click. There's something that's not there for him. And the bar is a non-negotiable yes, yes, yes for making sure that we've got these people in the right seats. So we always got the function, we got the roles, we put the name in. This is what it looks like. So this gets built out for your entire company. Structure first, people second. So the accountability chart looks like this. So everybody throughout the entire organization knows exactly what they're accountable for, what they need to obsess over every single day. So in doing this, you're going to discover 2 types of people. Now, most of your people, hopefully, will be right people, right seats. But rule of thumb, 20% of the people in your organization will need to turn over the first few years that you engage in EOS. And that sounds scary, but it's the best thing that could ever happen for your company. Because for you to truly get where you're trying to go, for you to be in control of your business, for you to be able to really engage in the passion that you have, in order for you to be able to partner with other like-minded people in making sure that we change the way healthcare is financed, disclosed, delivered, we need to make sure that we've got the right people in the right seats. So sometimes you're going to get the right person in the wrong seat. So they uphold our core values, but they are not hitting home runs in the seat that they're accountable for. Now, you got 60 people in your company, there's 60 seats, so hopefully there's another seat for them, but we can't keep people just because we like them. You've got to know what you're doing, you've got to uphold the core values, and you've got to be good at your job. The second thing that's the scarier is where we've got somebody who's in the right seat, but they're the wrong person. So this is typically a high performer, really, really good at their job, but does not uphold the core values of the company. These are the people who are chipping away at what you have worked your butt off for years to create in your organization. They're undermining everything that you've tried to do in ways that you don't even see. And it's terrifying to get rid of a high performer, but I promise you, your organization will be better if you get rid of somebody that does not uphold your core values. You've got to have people who are good at their job. You've also got to have people that uphold your core values. Right people, right seats. We have to have both. So when we're 100% strong in the people component, we've got 100% of the people who uphold our core values, and 100% of the people can hit home runs in the seat that they're accountable for. So that's the right people side. Now next is data. I love this quote from Jim Barksdale. Said, if we've got data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. Right? And the opinions is what most companies run on. In EOS companies, we run on data. We need to make sure that we know what we're looking at, and we know we're making decisions based on what the information says. So there's 2 parts to this. The first is scorecard, and you guys all have this in your books as well. I like to think of this as, if I would have created this, I would have called it the rumble strips. You're driving down the road, and your car goes at you. There's not a problem, but your car is telling you there's going to be a problem if we don't make a change. Now, if you hit the rumble strips and you do this, like that's not helpful, right? Your car is going to roll. If you hit the rumble strips, you got to make a very small adjustment. Apparently, I'm all on the driving analogies today. So you just have to make a small adjustment. But the rumble strips are helping us know when we're starting to drift. And so most companies, they get to the end of the quarter and then they look at all the numbers and they say, holy crap, what happened? So that's in the ditch. We don't want to wait until we're in the ditch. We want to, at a weekly basis, looking at the numbers to know if we're starting to drift. And so the way that we do scorecards, we've got the things that we're going to measure on a weekly basis, weekly leading edge activity-based metrics. So here's, again, not an answer key, just some examples. Every single metric has a goal that we're trying to hit. Every single measurable has a person who is accountable for it. Now, once again, I really hope that Ann isn't the only person who cares about weekly revenue. But if weekly revenue is off, we need one set of eyeballs to look into to say, there's a problem with weekly revenue that we've got to fix. And then we're always looking at 13 weeks at a glance, so we've got a rolling quarter, so we can see patterns and trends. And an EOS company, every single week, we're looking at these things, identifying where we're starting to drift so that we can make small changes before we have to make huge changes. So some examples: weekly revenue, cash balance, sales calls, errors, utilization rates, web conversions. All those things are weekly leading edge activity-based metrics that predict the financial future of the organization. So we've got a scorecard. We've also got measurables. The idea of measurables in this context is that every single person in your company is going to have at least one number that they are accountable for executing and hitting every single week. That's their definition of success. So when we are 100% strong in the data component, we've got scorecards. Now I showed you one. We've got a scorecard at the leadership team level. This also cascades through the organization. So we've got leadership team level, they've got a scorecard. Your ops team has a scorecard. Underneath ops, whatever departments you have, they have their own scorecard. So every single team or department in your organization has its own scorecard. And then 100% strong means every single person has their name next to at least one measurable on a scorecard somewhere. That's 100% strong in the data component. So vision is crystal clear. We got awesome people doing awesome stuff. We're running the company based on information. Anything that's a barrier, an impurity, a speed bump, all those things stand out. We call those issues. And there's two disciplines here. We've got the issues list, which I referenced in the VTO. You've got issues, I got issues. Let's just put them on a list and be okay with that. Thing number two is IDS, which is our issue solving track and the way that we solve issues in EOS companies. So whatever the issues are, we put them on a list. The I stands for identify, the D stands for discuss, and the S stands for solve. So what often happens is really talented leadership teams get hit with an issue, and then everybody gets in the conference room and we discuss the heck out of it for an hour, and then everybody feels good, right? But rarely did we truly identify the issue, and if we don't truly identify the issue, it's really difficult to solve anything. And so when we are solving issues, and this happens every week for every department, first of all, we identify what are the top three that we really need to spend our time on. Okay, well, Andy asked the right seat, the website rock is off track, the anodyne merger. All right, we pick the top three, and then we identify what the issue is. And this is really basic root cause analysis. So Toyota practical problem solving, the 5 whys, fishbone diagrams, all that stuff is more in depth. We're trying to talk basic, simple here. This is the thing that is on the issues list. Why is that? And why is that? And what's going on there? And what happened there? And we dig until we say, okay, that's the real issue here. And so you're going to have things like saying, okay, well, this metric is off track. Well, why is that? And why does that? And we're going to figure out, okay, well, when Jennifer started 3 weeks ago, nobody showed her that when she was supposed to enter her time differently for this thing than for that thing. Okay, got it. Let's fix that issue. There's a process problem, there's a training problem. Let's fix that, not spend all day worrying about the metric, because the metric is not the true issue. The issue is we didn't follow our training process. Our training process needs to be updated, whatever happened there. So we identify the issue. Once we know what it is, then we move on to discussing it, where everybody who has anything to say about it says it one time. More than once is politicking. We don't have time for that. And then we say, okay, what are we actually going to do to make this issue go away? So we identify, we discuss, we solve. And that was number 1. Cool. Now we move on to number 2. We do the same thing. We IDS. We move on to 3. We IDS. And if we get through all 3, great. We pick 3 more. And we just keep going with as much time as we have in our weekly meeting. So when we are 100% strong in the issues component, we have every team in the organization, leadership team, departments, sub-departments, everybody is maintaining their own issues list, and everybody is solving their issues using the IDS issue solving track. I have a client who, $92 million company, we get into our quarterly, they had a $40 boot allowance, their manufacturing company, they had a $40 boot allowance on their issues list. And I told, guys, you're a $92 million company, and you got a $40 boot allowance on your, like, do you have nobody else in your company that can worry about the $40 boot allowance? No, we need you as leaders solving leadership team issues. Even if you wanted to solve the $40 boot allowance, you know what? There's probably people in the organization that are better equipped to solve that than you, because you guys aren't wearing boots, right? So we need to make sure we're solving issues at the appropriate level in the organization. So when we're 100% strong, every team is maintaining their own issues list, and every team is solving issues using that IDS issue solving track. By the way, usually when I do this, I have 90 minutes, and so I just want you to know that I've cut out most of my best jokes. So I just want to give you credit for some funny stories and things that I usually like to tell. So give me a sympathy laugh here and there. I promise there's a really funny story that I usually tell right here. So on the process side then, 2 parts of this. We need to document our processes, and we need to make sure that we get them followed by all. So every organization has a handful of core processes. Now, once again, I freak out a little bit when I talk about this because I'm afraid that people are thinking Sarbanes-Oxley and AS 9100. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is saying we need to identify the handful of core processes that make us unique. So what's our kind of our franchise prototype? So most companies, we got a people process, a marketing process, sales, couple operations processes, customer service, whatever the core processes are. We used to say 6 to 10 core processes, but then people would freak out if they had 11 or they had 4. So we don't say 6 to 10 anymore. We just say handful, but it's usually about 6 to 10. So we need to identify what those core processes are. We need to document them and simplify. So we write down the major steps. Now, in everything we do with this, we do a 20-80 approach. So 20% of the process that gets us 80% of the results. Because here's the thing, the idea here isn't to stamp out individuality. The idea here is to standardize the most critical things. So how many underwriters, John, do we have at TPAC right now? 7? We're just going to say 7. Okay. So if there's 7 underwriters, they all uphold the core values. They're all the right people. They're all really good at their job. They're all in the right seat. So any way that any of the 7 of them wanted to kind of do their underwriting would probably be fine. But if we've got 7 underwriters doing it 7 completely different ways, we can't grow and scale. And so we just have to agree on what are the non-negotiable, don't you dare skip kinds of steps here. Now, we're not going to script people's phone conversations. We're not going to say, here's where you click on the app. What we're saying is, this is what we do. Don't you dare move on to that step until you've done this step. And with this step, here's the things that we do. Now, don't you dare do that until you've done this. Don't you dare do that. And so it's what is really the don't you dare skip stuff that we're doing for core processes? We need to document the 20% that gets us 80% of the results. We're not documenting this so that when you're on vacation, I can come sit in your chair and do your job. We're just saying we got 7 people. They're all brilliant. They all need to follow the most critical steps the same way if we're going to grow and we're going to scale. So we need to document and simplify them. So we've got a people process. What does that look like? We've got a sales process. What does that look like? We need to put it all together. Now, Isidore Sharp, who founded the Four Seasons Hotels, I love this quote as well. You need to systemize the predictable so that you can humanize the exceptional. The vast majority of what you do is routine and is just execute over and over and over. And by the way, your best people, if you follow them around, what you will find typically is that your best people are spending way more time than you think they are helping other people do their job and do it well. And so if we can systemize the predictable, we can get your high performers back to actually doing their thing and not having to manage everybody else. Systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. We need to get them documented. We need to get them followed by all. So that means training people, measuring what they're doing, leading, managing, holding them accountable, and making sure that processes are updated. So when we're 100% strong here, we've got our core processes identified, we've got them documented, we've got them simplified, and if we got 60 people in the company, 60 out of 60 are doing it that way every single time. That is 100% strong in the process component. Okay, so then last is the traction component. That's great that we've got vision, that's great that we got people, that's great that we've got data, but we need to actually execute as a company. And this is the part where we take all of the vision and we bring it down to the ground level of execution. So 2 parts here. One is rocks, and second is what we call our meeting pulse. So rocks, we talked about with the we talked about with the VTO, where we've got company rocks. What I didn't say there is the same way that scorecards cascade through the organization, issue solving cascades through the organization, rocks also cascade through the organization. So we're going to set rocks as a leadership team. Then if you're in charge of finance, you're going to set rocks with your finance team. The operations leader is going to set rocks with the operations team. Sub-departments are going to set rocks. So you got 60 people in your company. All 60 people are going to have at least one rock that they execute every single quarter. That is 100% strong with rocks. Now, meeting pulse is the way that we do meetings on a weekly basis in an EOS company. So this is how we make sure that we don't drift any farther than we have to. So all of our meetings, same day, same time, same agenda, starts on time, ends on time. And we call this a level 10. And the level 10 meeting, you've got this in your books as well. But if you listen to the Dilbert cartoons, everybody hates meetings because they're long, endless reporting sessions, right? Which, if you don't know where you're going, and you don't know how you're going to get there, and you don't have the right people in the right seats, lots of reporting is necessary. But if we truly have the right people in the right seats, and we're running the company based on information, and we know what our vision is, then the value of having you as leaders together in a meeting is not the sharing of information. The value of having you as leaders together in a meeting is collaborating to solve issues. So we minimize reporting. Some reporting is important. We always start with good news. We spend no more than 5 minutes on our scorecard going through everything. If it's on track, great. If it's off track, we don't talk about it now. We drop it down to the issues list. We always look at every single rock. We're reporting, is it on track or is it off track? If it's on track, great. We don't have to talk about it. If it's off track, we put it on the issues list. Customer employee headlines, all of that is reporting only. We're just reporting. There's always the to-do list that we're checking in on. A to-do is something that was committed to last week. So last week we solved an issue. We discovered that Jennifer wasn't accountable, or Jennifer didn't start entering her time the way that she was supposed to, and so we need to make sure that we do that. So this week we're going to say, okay, well, did you actually do this thing? And we've got that done or not done. Then most of the time is spent IDSing, which is solving the issues. We spend no more than 5 minutes concluding, and that's how we do a level 10 meeting. So when we're 100% strong in the traction component, we've got every single person has a rock, and every single person is accountable in their weekly meeting pulse. That's 100% strong. So vision component, people component, data component, issues, process, and traction. Those are the 6 key components of the EOS model. Now there's 5 tools in EOS that get you the vast majority of the results that you're getting. We call those the foundational tools. It's the VTO, the accountability chart, the rocks, the meeting pulse, and the scorecard. So there's lots of stuff in EOS. That's where you would need to start. So a couple final thoughts. One is that usually usually the way that I like to do questions is have people interrupt me in the middle of it. We didn't have time for that here, but I'm around all day, and so feel free to grab me if you've got a question. I want to introduce you to something called the law of diminishing intentions, which means that for every 24 hours you intend to take action and you do not, then you are 50% as likely to actually do anything. And so the most important thing, if you're looking at this saying, oh my gosh, I think this would really help my company, is to take one action in the next 24 hours. And so I want you to choose one action that you're committing to yourself. I'm not going to ask you. But thing number 1 is to set a timer for 15 minutes and get a first draft of your VTO. So sometime in the next 24 hours, and I literally mean 15 minutes, because just getting stuff started is the most important thing. Set a timer on your phone for 15 minutes and do your best to fill out the things on the VTO. What are the priorities? What are our core values? Where are we trying to go? How are we going to get there? Thing number 2 is to read the first chapter of Traction. Traction is the first book in the EOS library and is really kind of a good introduction to how does all this stuff work in your business. Mike's got some copies of it that he's going to tell you about. You can also download the first chapter online. And then thing number 3 is to reach out to me for a confidential follow-up call. Here's the reality, is there's always issues of confidentiality in a room like this. And people are like, oh, okay, well, there's something going on with our people. I need to figure out how this is going to work, but I can't ask that in a room full of a whole bunch of people. You've all got my contact information. You can reach out to me for that. No sales, no gimmicks. I just want to make sure that you truly get your questions answered. So that is EOS. We turn it back over to Mike.
All right, thanks, Joel. Does anyone have a quick question Joel's going to be with us all day. We've used this for probably now 4 years. How did we come up with a mission statement that changed the way healthcare is financed, disclosed, and delivered? Was going through this process. We had a 10-year target, and I just chafed. I'm like, I don't want to come up with a 10-year target, because all underwriting companies and insurance companies I've been at, the target was to grow X amount of millions or billion. It's just not me. I just can't do that. So we came up with what we're doing is our 2030, and one of our 2030 visions, one of our targets is to have the same costs for our employers, same PEPM costs in 2030 as we have in 2023. That's a 7-year picture. It's like, oh, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to make self-funded easy. So there's so many things, and we've had right people in wrong seats. We've had wrong people in right seats, and so we've had to go through that process. So a lot of things that happen, and John is our integrator. Day to day, I'm the visionary. I don't feel like a visionary. I feel like an underwriter, but that's kind of the role that I've taken. So all those things have really helped us, and Joel has been critical to that. So thank you very much, Joel. And there is in the back, I got to get my notes here, a book. We have copies of the Traction book. If you would like one, take one, courtesy of TPAC. So thanks, Joel.